Now we have covered from chapter 1 to 8 up to the Schur's theorem and normal matrices, which makes you that you can make unitary. You can find the unitarily diagonalizable matrix. Okay. Okay. Now in chapter 9, we will generalize the concept of vector space from Rn and Cn to a general vector space V. Okay. Okay. The operations used in vector addition and scalar multiplications are not limited to the theory, but can be applied to all areas in society. For example, consider objects around you as vectors and make a set of vectors. Then create two proper operations. One is vector addition and the other one is a scalar multiplication. From the relations between the object. 부부 사이의 관계, 가족 사이의 관계, 연인 사이의 관계, 소유자, 공장의 그 오너와 그 소비자의 관계, 노동자와의 관계, 이런 관계들을 연산으로 표현한다면, 오케이. 그렇게 해서 이제 그 벡터 스페이스 여러분들이 배운 내용을 사용할 수 있다는 소리예요. 그 연산을 정의를 함으로써. If these two operations satisfies the two basic laws, and 8 operation properties, then the set becomes a mathematical vector space, which can be called a linear space. Thus, we can use all properties of vector space and can analyze sets theoretically and apply them to the original real-world problems. In this chapter, we give abstract definition of a vector space and deal with the general theory of a vector space. First, section 9.1, axioms of vector space. In this section, the concepts of vectors has been extended to n tuples in Rn from the arrows in two-dimensional or three-dimensional space. Okay. We extend the concept of n-dimensional space Rn to an n-dimensional vector space. General n-dimensional vector space. This is a definition of vector space. If a non-empty set V has two well-defined binary operations. One is a vector addition, A, and the other one is a scalar multiplication, dot. Then, for any xyz in V and hk in R, real number, set of real numbers, then two basic laws, this. What is this? V is closed under the vector addition. V is closed under the scalar multiplication. Okay. If this set with these two operations satisfies these two properties, okay, and another following 8 laws, which says this: commutative for the vector addition, associative for the vector addition, and you have an additive inverse for the vector addition. You have the zero vector in it. Okay, and additive inverse does exist in V. These 4 properties for vector addition. 4 properties. And 2 and 4 and another 4. These are the 4 properties for scalar multiplication. It's distributive. 3 distributive laws. And if we multiply scalar 1 for a vector x, then it should be the same vector. This is another property. Then we have what? 2, 4, 4. If the element in V satisfies these 2 and 8 properties, 10 properties together, then we say this V with these 2 operations forms a vector space. And we call the element in V is a vector. Okay. So when you have an object, then you can form a set of those objects, and you try to find the 2 operations. If those if those element satisfies the 10 properties with these operations, then those set of objects with these two operations form a vector space. Okay, and that's the whole idea. In general, two operations defining a vector space are important. Therefore, it is better to write this instead of just V. So, you should keep in mind, when you say a vector space, you are always, those vector space always related with the specified two operations. Okay, well, example, one. Two vectors in R3, because this is this is a vector space. So, the element in R3 are vectors. Okay, for two vectors here, and the scalar k, then the sum, vector addition and scalar multiplication, if it defined in this way, then it satisfies 10 properties. Okay? That's why this R3, with these two operations, form a vector space. Okay? Over R. Okay, because you are using a scalar from the R's. If you choose, if this is Cn and this is K comes from C, then also the C3 with these two operations form a vector space over the set C. For vectors in Rn, if you have then with scalar, if you define a vector addition like this and scalar multiplication like this, and this also satisfies 10 properties. You already learned this satisfies two basic properties. Closed under the vector addition, closed under the scalar multiplication. And also it satisfies other 8 properties. So this Rn also form a basis with these two operations. Form a vector space with these two operations. And this is the basic properties of vectors. If V is a vector space with two operations, then the following hold. If you multiply 0, scalar 0 on a vector, then it's going to be a 0 vector. If you multiply a scalar on a 0 vector, it's going to be a 0 vector. And if you multiply -1, then it comes to be a additive inverse of x. And if scalar k times a vector x is equal to 0, then k or x should be 0. Or 0 vector, and or 0 vector. And here, if V is a singleton set with only 0 vectors in it, then for scalar k, with the vector addition and scalar multiplication we defined, and the addition of 2 0 vector is a 0 vector, so it's in there. And scalar multiple of k on a 0 vector is a 0 vector, so it's closed under the vector addition and scalar multiplication, and also it satisfies all 8 properties. So this form a vector space, okay, of dimension 0. We call it is a 0 vector space. Let m sub n by n be the set of all n by n matrix with real entries. Then the set can be written in this way. And when m is equal to 10, we wrote this as by m sub n. If this set is equipped with the usual matrix addition and the scalar multiplication, then with those two operations, this satisfies the element in it satisfies 10 properties. So this form a vector space. Okay. In here, if you have A, then additive inverse is this, and 0 matrix is a 0 vector in it. And, okay. Next, let C of R be the set of all continuous functions from R to R. That means this C of R is a set of all continuous functions from R to R. Then this, if we define for this set, if we define two operations like this, we choose f and g from here, and define vector addition like this and scalar multiplication like this. Then the addition of these two is also a continuous function from R to R. It's closed under the vector addition. scalar multiple of a continuous function is also a continuous function from R to R. So it is closed under the scalar multiplication. And also it satisfies 8 other properties. So with this operation, this set forms a vector space. Okay? So now you can deal with this vector space with the knowledge that you have learned from chapter 1 to 8. Okay? You can define an inner product on this. Okay? You can define inner product on these continuous functions, like what you did on vectors in Rn and Cn. Next, Pn be the set of all polynomials of degree at most n with real coefficient. Like this. Set of polynomials whose degree is at most n. So it can be written in this way. Okay? If we define a vector addition like this and scalar multiplication like this, then what? If you add two polynomials of degree at most n, then addition is also a polynomial whose degree is at most n. Okay? So it's closed under the vector addition. If you multiply a scalar on a polynomial, then the result is also a polynomial whose degree is at most n. So it's closed under the scalar multiplication. And it also satisfies all 8 other properties. So the set of this polynomial with these two operations form a vector space. So now you can define an inner product on these polynomials. This is a starting point of Fourier analysis. Fourier coefficients comes from the inner product of these polynomials. Okay. Here, the zero vector is a zero, just constant zero half function, and the negative vector is just the polynomial whose coefficients are all negative AIs. Okay. The vectors in Pn means polynomials of degree at most n with real coefficient. Now, next, subspace. Let V be a vector space and W be a subspace of V, non-empty subset of V. Then, if W form a vector space with the operations defined in V, then W is called the subspace of V. Important thing is, V is a vector space, so it has two operations that satisfies 10 properties. This subset, W, non-empty subset, should satisfy 10 properties on the same operation, same two operation that V has. Okay? In that case, if this W with plus and dot satisfies the 10 properties, then we call this W is a subspace of V. If W and V use two different operations, then we don't say it's a subspace. Okay, here. If this is a vector space, then always this singleton set is a trivial vector space, always subspace, and V itself is a subspace. V is a subset of V, and V form a vector space with the same operations that V has. Okay, so these two are always a subspace of this vector space. Okay, so we call these are trivial subspaces. Okay, in fact, the only subspace of R2 are what? R2 are these two trivial subspaces and a line passing the origin. There are only 3 types of subspaces that R2 has. Okay? R2 itself, trivial zero vector, and a line passes through the origin. There are 3 types. R3 has only this 4 types of subspaces, R3. What is? R3 has 2 trivial subspaces, null space and itself, and a line passing through the origin. That's the one-dimensional subspace. and passing, the plane passing through the origin like this. That's also subspace. That's it. This subspace, like this example. Line passing through the origin. If you add two lines passing through the origin, that also passing through the origin. Okay? And also it's a line. If you multiply a scalar on the line that passes the origin, that is also a line passing through the origin. So it's closed under the vector scalar multiplication. So it is a, and also it satisfies all other properties. Because all the vectors in R3 satisfies the 10 properties. So automatically the other 8 properties from a subset satisfies all the rest 8 properties. Okay. So this is a way to check whether the given non-empty subset is a subspace or not. Two-step subspace test. Let this set be a vector space, and W is a non-empty subset of V. The necessary and sufficient condition for W to be a subspace of V is this: if W is closed under the vector addition, if W is closed under the scalar multiplication. If we satisfy these two properties, then W, non-empty subset of V, W, is always a subspace of W. Why? What's the proof? This W should be a vector space, so it should satisfy 10 properties. Now, 2 properties satisfies first. Then we need 8 other properties to be satisfied. Why is true? Because all the other 8 properties satisfied any element in V. Okay? So the other 8 properties should be satisfied by any element in W as well. It satisfies all element in V. So it should satisfy for the on the subset W. So we don't have to worry about 8 properties if it's a subset. Okay? So this is the only 2 things. So if it satisfies these 2 properties, that non-empty subset of V is a subspace. Okay? Here is the example. Let W is just show this non-empty subset W is a subspace of this vector space. So all you have to do is check these 2 conditions. Choose two elements from here and check the arbitrary 2 element addition is in W and scalar multiple is in W. So it satisfies 2 properties. So it's closed under vector addition, closed under the scalar multiplication. So it is a subspace. That's it. So this W is a subspace of M of 2 by 3. Next example. Set of invertible matrices of order n is not a subspace of vector space with those 2 operations. Why? Even though you have 2 invertible matrices, but addition of those 2 are can be a 0 matrix, which is non-invertible. So it's not closed under the vector addition. So it's not a subspace. Next, V is a vector space and S, let S is a subset of it. Then show that the set W, which is a linear span of S, span of those, all the set of linear combination of these vectors in S. Then W is always a subspace of V. The span of S is a linear span. This is a subspace of. You have showed it already before. How? How are you going to prove it? Choose arbitrarily 2 vectors from W. Okay? And so that can be written as a linear combination of the vectors in S like this. Then vector addition is in W, okay, and scalar multiplication is in W as well. So it satisfies 2 properties of 2-step subspace test. So it's a subspace. Next, linear independence and linear dependence. Let this subset is a subset of vector space V. If it satisfies this, then we call these vectors are linear independent. If not, it's linear dependent, like what we did before. Okay? Okay, next. EIs can be, if EIJ looks like this, then linear combination of this, let linear combination of these four vectors is equal to 0, then this CI should be all zeros. Okay? So, we can say these four vectors are linearly independent. But these three vectors, we can write linear combination of this can be 0 with the non-trivial linear combination. There exists a non-trivial combination which makes the 0 vector. So this is not linearly independent. So these are linear set of these example of linear dependent set. Next, 1 x square and x x to the n of this set, this subset of Pn. Can you show these are the linear independent or not? How? Find the linear combination of this. Let it be 0. Then what do we have? We have one polynomial which is 0. So all the coefficients should be what? All 0. That means these are linearly independent. So these are the linear independent vectors in Pn. Okay? Let these three vectors are this set of three vectors are subset of Pn, then we can, one vector can be written as the linear combination of the other two, so these are linearly dependent. Definition of basis and dimension. If a non-empty subset alpha of the vectors of a vector space V satisfies the following condition, then we call this alpha is a basis of V. Basis of V. Which, how many conditions? How many conditions? To be a basis. 2. First, span should be same as the everything. Next, it should be a linear independent set. Span is equal to the V and alpha is a linear independent. If we satisfy, alpha satisfies these two conditions, then we call alpha is a what? Basis. Then, in this case, the number of elements of the basis, alpha, which is the cardinality of alpha, the number of vectors in alpha, is called the dimension of the vector space V. And we write as a dimension of V like this. Exactly same as what you know. So, E11, E12, E21, E22 is a basis of M2 because they are linear independent. And linear combination of this spans all M2 because arbitrary matrix in M2 can be written as a linear combination of these four vectors. So it spans M2 and linear independent. So these forms what? Basis. What's the dimension of this span? What's the dimension of M2? Which is the span of this form? What? These are basis, linear independent and span. What's the number of these bases? 4. So what's the dimension of M2? 4. Let's see. What's the dimension of Pn? This was a linear independent. And you can write a arbitrary vector in Pn can be as a linear combination of this. So this spans Pn. So this is a set of bases. What's the cardinality of this set? N plus 1. So the dimension of Pn is what? N plus 1. That's the number of these vectors in this set. Okay. We call these EIJs and this 1 to x to the n are called the standard basis for M2 and Pn respectively. Show these three sets, this set of three vectors forms a basis for P2. How do you show? You have to show two spans and linear independent. First, linear independent. Let the linear combination of these three is equal to 0. And find the coefficient. They are all 0. So they are linear independent. Okay? Next, span. How? For arbitrary vector in P2 can be written as a linear combination of these three vectors. You can find this ABC by solving this linear system of equation. So there exists ABC because this is a non-singular matrix. So you can find the inverse, multiply, then you have an ABC. So there exists ABC which make the linear combination of these three vectors is this arbitrary polynomial in P2. So it spans. So it spans linear independent, so it's a basis. Linear independence of continuous functions. How to check it? This is one good way of checking continuous functions, whether the given continuous set of continuous functions are linear independent or not, which is called the Wronskian test. If these are the differentiable functions, n-1 times continuously differentiable on the interval, and there exists x0 such that Wronskian w of x0 defined as below is not 0, then these functions are linearly independent. If there exists one point x0 that makes the determinant of this is not 0, then these functions, polynomials, f1 up to fn, is linearly independent. Okay? So, conversely, if w of x, this determinant, is always 0 for any x on the interval, then these are linearly dependent. Okay. If w of x is always 0, linearly dependent. If not, linearly independent. If you can find one x0 that makes this Wronskian not 0, then they are linearly independent. Very easy. So, suppose you have these three polynomials. Find the determinant of the 1 e to the x, e to the 2x. Derivative of 1 is 0. Derivative of e to the x itself. Derivative of e to the 2x is 2 times e to the 2x. And second derivatives are here. What's the determinant? That's just the coeffective expansion, so you need the determinant of this only here. This is not 0 for some x. In fact, it's not 0 for all x. So, they are linearly independent. We can easily check the Wronskian of these three functions are this, which is not 0 for some x, 0. So, it's linearly independent. What about this? X and sin x. This is this, Wronskian. F1, F2, F prime of x, F second prime of x. This is sometimes it's 0, sometimes it's not 0. Which means there exists x0, which makes this Wronskian not 0. So there exists x not, so they are what? Linearly independent. What about this? X and 3x. X, 3x. First derivative, here. Determinant is 0. Always. So what? Those two functions are differentiable. Because it's Wronskians always 0. So they are linearly dependent. Okay, that's the end of section 9.1. Any questions?